Hello, I'm Jim Peterson, Managing Director of Research Strategy Group. Today we're going to be talking about a brand called Ungava. Very interesting brand, and we hope to tell you a story about how we use semiotics and psychoanalytics to understand the brand in more detail. I'm going to pass you over to my colleague, Indira Valencia, whom I've had the great pleasure of working with for a number of years. Indira?
Hi, I'm Indira Valencia. I work at Corby, that is the Canadian affiliate of Pernod Ricard. As Jim mentioned, we have been working for several years in several projects, and it's always been a great pleasure. And this is one of what I found to be one of the most interesting projects that we have done together. And so let's look at it. Let's deep dive into it right away. So I ask you the question, what is in this bottle? Can you guess? Maybe you're thinking, is this a flavor vodka or tequila or gin? What if it is a flavor gin? So actually, you might not have an idea. And that is one of the key things we found out that our consumers and potential consumers were experiencing as well. Just for you to know, this is a gin. So today we're going to be talking about the story of what a new and unique Canadian brand has done to get interesting consumer insights in order to allow it to scale up, not only in Canada, but internationally as well. And this brand is Ungava. So what did we wanted to know? We had two main objectives. One was to understand what people think about gin and the role that gin plays in their life, which was key for us to develop a stronger brand positioning, and also the reactions to Ungava's packaging, current and proposed, in order to get all the possible learnings to optimize the pack. So what we did was to run a qual study where we had 10 focus groups in 3 different countries. It was in Canada, we had focus group here in Canada, in the US, and in the UK. With 2 different segments. We have younger consumers, but also a little bit more mature people. And then we have 3 different inputs. We had inputs from consumers, psychoanalytics, and semiotics. And now Jim is going to take us and explain us a little bit more about psychoanalytics and semiotics.
So the first objective that we were looking at is what people think about gin and the role that gin plays in their lives. We decided that simply asking them in a traditional manner wouldn't really generate as much interesting information as using a technique that we call psychoanalytics. And I can tell you a little bit about our definition of psychoanalytics. Basically, it studies how people think so that we can understand their perceptions beyond what is at the superficial or rational level. What we're trying to do is discover the unconscious program that goes into their decision making. And that's how we're using psychoanalytics to understand the role of gin in people's lives. So one of the things that psychoanalytics posits is that people are very good at telling you things that are pretty straightforward. You ask them why they drink gin, they'll tell you because they like the flavor or whatever that is. So that's a materialistic need. It's very simple. What we want to do, though, is dig deeper into what we would call the consumer psyche and understand at the ego level what things are being satisfied by a certain product or brand. So at the ego level, it's what's in it for me. If we go a little deeper, we're looking at the social level, which is what's in it for me and my colleagues or my social group or my family or how I interact within society. And at an archetypal level, we're really trying to understand what is the most motivating need. And in this case, what is the most motivating need that people are getting from buying gin? The deeper we can go into these needs, the more motivating any messaging that we develop will be. So psychoanalytics, in this case, gave us guidance about these unconscious consumer needs that gin satisfies. And we can take you through that in the next slide. question we always like to ask is, so this isn't just an academic exercise, but something where we're trying to understand what the product means in people's lives. We ask, what are people really buying when they buy gin? So if Ungava can understand what these needs are and can communicate them, they should have a very motivating approach to either advertising or perhaps even some kind of promotional activity. At the very top, people are looking for something that's versatile. Gin is a very versatile thing. It comes in different flavors now, it comes in different colors. It is something that mixes well with fruit juice and tonic water and straight as a martini or with vermouth. So versatility is one thing. It's a very simple thing that people get from gin. When we dig deeper, though, there's an element of creativity. And in the stories that we had people write about gin, they would say things like, I became my inner bartender came out as I created a drink with gin. It was so interesting. I used a different color or a different flavored gin, and I created something that I was able to share with my friends. Part of this, as we dig deeper, is something that we call being in the moment. And by that, we mean that when people are drinking gin with their friends or with their family, there seems to be something that keeps them very present, and they talk about things that matter to them, and they're staying in the present moment. And then this leads into the final level of need, which is gin satisfies a turning point. And here we found in the stories that people would usually drink gin, or their stories about drinking gin were to do with some turning point in their life. It could be that they were talking about an engagement, about getting married, about moving their house, or taking a new job. Whatever it was, this turning point was a consistent theme that kept coming up as they talked about their experiences with gin. The second objective we were trying to satisfy was to understand what Ungava's packaging was communicating, both in its current form and what could be done with the packaging going forward. So obviously we were going to talk to consumers about that, but we also engaged a semiotician to look at some of the semiotics behind the packaging itself, to add another layer of analysis. So as many of you know, semiotics is simply the study of signs and symbols in a cultural context. And we use semiotics with the reactions of consumers to create an understanding of what the packaging was communicating. And I think at this point, I'll hand it over to Indy.
Thank you, Jim. So with the semiotics, basically we learned that the packaging was being confusing and delivered conflicting messages. So let's look at it more in detail. So here we can see some of the key findings we got from semiotics. As you can see on the left hand, the yellow color connotes citrus and lemon, resulting in Ungava as flavored gin, which is something that we don't want people to think about it. We don't want them to think that it's a flavored gin because this is not. So it's good to understand this, because then now we need to find a way to clarify that in the new pack design, for example. Also, if you see like on the left hand where it says syllabics, a brand name Ungava was associated with exotic warmer regions like Africa and South America. So it was curious to see this, because we also had some other things in the packaging that actually connote something different, and that is the Canadian North, like because it actually signifies mountains and forest, which is opposite to the exotic. So these are like two examples that can actually show that this pack in general is confusing consumers. It's not transmitting the key messages we want them to transmit. We want it to transmit. Especially if we were thinking on growing a brand, this is key, like to be managed. Also here we can see the stimuli that we use during the research. We actually made it very broad on purpose because we wanted to capture all the learnings possible. So of course we had the current pack because we wanted to test and to understand what consumer perceive about the bottle shape, the closure, and also the label. And this was gonna be used as a reference for any modification that we could potentially do. Additionally, we had 3 different packs or bottle shapes that we use. You can see they're very similar except on the upper part, which were very different, and that people perceive it. It was funny to see like all the things that actually consumers perceive about the different bottle shapes. Then we have 4 different type of closures. And last but not least, we have 3 different type of designs for the label. So here we went from a very minimalistic design to a stretch design that was like more colorful with a lot of more details as well. So again, these labels were designed just to get learnings from the research, but these are not even like mock-ups or designs that we are considering to put in real life. They were just like to get learnings, not only for the pack refresh that we're going to be doing, but all like right now, but also to get learnings for potential launch that we could have in the future. So in the summary, the results were like the right packaging will position Ungava with premium global brands, which is something that we're looking forward, especially because we want to grow the brand outside Canada. So here in the left-hand side, we're going to see current pack. As I mentioned before, it's very confusing. People find it to be exotic, strong, masculine flavored. And on the right-hand side, we have the bottle that consumers actually put together, like this new pack. They selected the bottle shape, they selected the label, and they also selected the right cork that they consider that will recreate a better version of Ungava, that it's what we're looking for the brand to showcase like to consumers. And putting all these elements together, we actually are getting a more premium gin that shows flow or and transmit cold, mixability, refreshing, and cooling, which are things that are more associated with gin. So right now, Ungava is playing in 3 areas: in the color and flavor, interesting, unique, and Canadiana. And it's right now here on the left. With the current packaging and without clear direction, it will remain in the color and flavor category, and that is not something that we are looking for, because actually it is not flavor, and we want it to be perceived as a premium brand, which it is. So with the right direction and cues from the packaging that we've learned from this research, with a good marketing, Ungava has actually the real opportunity to play in an interesting, unique, and more premium category, joining the companionship of the brands on the right-hand side, as Aviation, Impress, Hendrix. And actually it was placed there even by consumers. So it's something that we have learned from the input that we got from consumers, but also from the inputs we got from semiotics and the whole analysis done in the research.
What did we learn? 3 kind of important things came out of this. There was an awful lot of learning from it, but one is that we learned that gin is more than just a refreshing drink, that there are latent psychological needs that it satisfies. And we mentioned those earlier: creativity, being in the moment, and being a part of key turning points in life. Now, the implication for marketing is very strong in terms of deciding what creative might look like, understanding these as some of the themes that could be very motivating. Using semiotics, we also uncovered how people perceive Ungava's packaging. Beyond just asking what people liked and disliked, we understood some of their initial reactions, and then we're able to put it in the context of a semiotician's view. And from what Indy showed you in terms of the current packaging, or what was then the current packaging, to what the groups came up with, they were quite different but much clearer. And so semiotics was very useful in helping us to get through that. Finally, we know that whatever packaging is decided for Ungava, because it's a brand that's currently, changing, and when you go global, you're going to be doing a number of different things. But we learned enough principles in this study that there are rules that can be used in developing packaging for Ungava that cut across markets, as we were in the UK, the US, and Canada. Now, these questions we put up here are questions that we would like to hear from the audience, and maybe get some suggestions from you. So the first question is, when you look at this presentation, can you see other ways that we could have approached this problem? Was there something that we could have done differently? Or was there something that when you were watching this, you thought, oh, I wish they had done that? The other thing, and it's a question that you might have, it's always a question when we use psychoanalytics, is how do we take these more abstract findings and use them to craft messaging? What is it that we've learned from the psychoanalytics that can be put into, say, advertising or promotions? And finally, what should a company like Pernod Ricard do to emphasize that this gin is premium, it's something that should have universal appeal? As Indy said, it's not just a gin that would be sold in Canada, it's a gin that is designed to be sold internationally. So at this point, I think we would welcome questions and comments, and we'll do our best to answer them. Thank you.